Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week we're checking out this 4-color build of Avatar Aang as voted on by my supporters on Patreon. Avatar Aang is a 4-4 with flying and firebending too, so when Aang attacks we get 2 red mana that we get to use until end of combat, and whenever we either waterbend, earthbend, firebend or airbend we get to draw a card. If we've somehow done all 4 this turn, we get to transform Avatar Aang into Aang, Master of Elements, which is a 6/6 flyer, saying spells we cast cost 1 of each color less to cast. This also reduces the generic mana cost, so a lot of our spells now get to be cast for free. And at the beginning of each upkeep, we also may transform Aang back into the front side. If we do, we gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, put 4+1 counters on him, and he also deals 4 damage to each opponent. So that's quite the payoff for transforming Aang, which isn't easy, but the good news is that just drawing a bunch of cards with Avatar Aang can already provide a ton of value, so even without transforming it, it can easily take over a game. Now, important to note, because the Master of Elements has a black mana symbol in its rule text, it also technically lets you play black spells in this deck, since it does have a black commander identity, but I'm just going to stick to 4 colors since there's already enough going on and we don't need to stretch out the mana base even further. So then to help with a deck breakdown, I've split up the deck into a few different categories, starting with our mana acceleration, potential ways to play Aang ahead of schedule, fix our colors, make extra mana, since we do have some expensive cards throughout. And then the next 3 categories are pretty self-explanatory. We've got Avatar Aang doing the firebending to potentially enable its ability, can already draw a card just by attacking with the firebending ability, so we don't have any other firebending cards throughout, but I do have an entire section dedicated to waterbending, another for earthbending, and another one for airbending as well. Airbending provides a bit of interaction, earthbending gives us more creatures, maybe helps us ramp as well, and then waterbending is mostly also interaction or ways to draw more cards. And then we have another small dedicated section for some cheap interaction, especially red burn spells that we can cast using the firebending from Aang is especially helpful, so we don't waste that firebending mana. And then we've got a few enchantments and equipment to give our creatures haste, which can also be very useful with Aang if we can play it, immediately attack to get a replacement card and get the firebending started. And these can also be helpful with our mana creatures, which can now immediately tap for mana to cast more spells afterwards. And then the miscellaneous section has one very important card, Moon Mist, which allows us to transform Aang without having to do any firebending, airbending, etc. We can just cast it for 2 mana, transform Aang. Now it won't be able to deal any damage this turn, but that's okay. We still get to flip it into the 6/6 flyer, which we can immediately transform back if we'd like to just draw 4 cards and get all the other benefits. But that's also why we have a few tutor effects to help find Moon Mist, as it's originally designed to transform werewolves, but it also works on avatars as it turns out. And then we have a few more ways to double up on Avatar Aang's abilities with Katara and with Annie joins up, so those are also very powerful. So that's our deck in a nutshell. And now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration. At 1 mana, we've got Avacyn's Pilgrim, Birds of Paradise, Delighted Halfling can also make Aang uncounterable, Elvish Mystic, and Llanowar Elves. At 2 mana, there's Bloom Tender, which will often be able to tap for 4 mana. Same with Faeburrow Elder, which also grows the more colors among permanents we have. Fanatic of Ronas can make 4 green mana with a 4-powered creature out. There's a Farseek, which can even get some of our non-basic lands. And the Great Divide Guide also makes a mana of any color, fixes our mana base perfectly, and all our allies, of which we have many, can now also tap for a mana of any color. And Arcane Signet can also immediately tap for a mana of any color. Then we get to our waterbending section with a Watery Grasp, which can also just be an effective removal spell, keeping an opposing creature tapped down, and then 5 mana in order to waterbend and shuffle it back into its owner's library. We can also use the firebending mana from Aang to help us waterbend, which is a common interaction. There's a Waterbender Ascension. We've got a few of these Ascensions throughout. This one can potentially help us draw extra cards if we complete all 4 quest counters. There's Crashing Wave to keep opposing creatures tapped down with stun counters. The Water Whip can draw more cards. Aang's Iceberg is just a removal spell. If we sacrifice it by waterbending, we can scry 2, so it can also once again use the firebending mana. If we maybe exile the token with it, then we don't mind sacrificing the Iceberg. Then there's a Submersible to bounce something, can exhaust by waterbending and turn it into a creature. Katara can waterbend to draw a card. There's the North Pole Patrol, which can waterbend to tap an opposing creature down. Waterbending Lesson, once again a card draw spell. Yue, the Moon Spirit, can waterbend to help us cast spells without paying their mana cost. So it can also be a way to kind of turn our waterbending into some sort of mana advantage, especially with the firebending mana as well. And then Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, can make extra ally tokens and can waterbend even without having to necessarily benefit from the ability, just to draw a card with Avatar Aang. Then our Earthbending starts with the Earthen Ally, pretty expensive to Earthbend 5, but also just a powerful 1-drop in this deck. Then there's the Badger Mole Cub, which benefits from other Earthbending cards and Mana Elves, which can now tap for an extra green mana. Boomi's Feast Lecture can also help us make a food token and Earthbend cheaply. There's Haru Hidden Talent, whenever another ally we control enters Earthbend, so this is especially good with Aang, because when Aang enters we get to Earthbend and immediately draw a card of the Earthbending ability as well. Earthbender Ascension, another one of our Ascension enchantments, can also level it up with a landfall pretty easily to get additional +1 counters, also just helps us ramp by getting an extra basic land. Earthbending Student will Earthbend 2, giving land creatures vigilance. Toph, the Blind Bandit, also Earthbending 2, and its own power grows with the number of lands we control that have +1 counters on them. Bitter Work can also be a source of card advantage if we can hit with our 4-powered Aang, and can exhaust to potentially Earthbend, so it can also once again make use of the firebending mana to activate it. Then Toph, the Greatest Earthbender, can usually Earthbend 4 when it enters, giving land creatures double strike. Toph, Hard-Headed Teacher, can also be an easy way to cheaply Earthbend by casting other spells and draw more cards with Aang. And Toph, the First Metal Bender, can Earthbend each turn. It's another consistent way to draw cards with our commander. And then finally it's time for Airbending, with the Airbender Ascension, the last one, can airbend a creature when it enters, and can also level it up by just playing more creatures to the board, at which point we can maybe flicker one of our creatures end of turn, so that can also provide more value. There's the Reversal, to either destroy an attacking creature or airbend a creature we control. Then the Airbending Lesson can airbend any target non-land permanent and draw a card. So all these airbending cards usually have different cards we can target with them. Some can only target our own stuff. Some, like the Airbending Lesson, can also target opposing non-land permanents. Then there's the Glider Staff to airbend up to 1 target creature. We've got Aang, Swift Savior, one of the more versatile ones, can even airbend spells that are on the stack to use it as kind of a pseudo counterspell, and then can also waterbend afterwards, so this can potentially meet 2 of the conditions. Then there's Aang, the Last Airbender, to airbend a non-land permanent once again. Appa can airbend our own stuff. We've got Avatar's Wrath as another pseudo sweeper, can leave Aang in play and send everyone else packing. And then Aang, Airbending Master, can also airbend any creature when it enters, can also maybe give us additional ally tokens based on our experience counters. And then our other removal includes Portable Hole, since it's also an artifact we can tap for waterbending, so it has a bit of additional synergy there. Swords to Plowshares is just powerful. And then we've got our red instant speed burn spells with Burst Lightning, Firebending Lesson, Lightning Bolts, a Braid can also hit artifacts, and a Lightning Strike. And then our haste effects include Lightning Greaves, which can also protect Aang. And then we've got our 3 enchantments, Rising of the Day giving legendary creatures 1 additional power as well. Frostcliff Siege is going to give all our creatures 1 additional power, trample, and haste. Can also choose the Jeskai mode if we want additional cards instead. And Temur Ascendancy, when a creature with power 4 or greater enters, we may draw a card. So also curves very nicely into Avatar Aang, and then gives all our creatures haste. And then our miscellaneous section also has a Mother of Runes, which can also maybe help protect Avatar Aang. And then both Mystical Tutor and Solve the Equation are often going to help find our Moon Mist, so we can easily transform Aang. And then a Katara can double all our triggers from allies, including Aang. So by doubling the Firebending trigger, we get 4 mana, but by doubling the Firebending trigger, we now also get to draw 2 cards per Firebending trigger. So by attacking with Aang with Katara in play, we end up with 4 mana and 4 extra cards. And the same goes for Annie Joins Up, so these are also especially synergistic with our commander. Can also deal 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker when it enters, so it's also a solid removal spell. And then our mana base has 1 of each of the basics of our colors. Again, could be playing swamps, but there's no reason to. And then I'm running the Verge lands in each color pair, the Check lands, and the Shock lands. So no Surveil lands this time, but that's because I'm making room for a few of these Triomes that can also help fix our colors, can get them tapped early on, if we don't have anything else going on, since these are also fetchable with all of our fetch lands, and we've got all of them in the deck, as well as Mana Confluence, Command Tower, and Cavern of Souls, which can also help make our allies or humans uncounterable. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing the pair of commanders here. My hand is decent. Got Fanatic into maybe an Ascension, try and set up Avatar, get a Plains. Could start with a tapped green source for what it's worth. Alright, Curse of Silence is going to make Aang cost 6. Although I've got the ramp where it may not be a huge concern. They seem to have more free spells in hand. A Grief, wow. Well, that's maybe taking the Fanatic now. Can always Eternalize it for 4 mana, but that's going to be a while. So our opponent is not messing around with their early Disruption. Halfling's not a bad draw. So I don't have the double green to Eternalize Fanatic next turn, so we'll start with the Ascension. Still debating whether or not I want to get a Plains with it. Freebooter's next, so that can now take the Ascension. I've got all 3 Ascensions, so probably going for Earthbender. Airbender can still airbend the Freebooter, but not without white mana. So I can only play the Waterbender Ascension now. And then no real point in attacking, because they can just block. Well, 3 early disruptive spells are gonna slow us down, as it turns out. Now I've got white mana. So what's the plan? Probably just Ascension the Freebooter and then cast the Earthbender Ascension while I can. And then now I could get a forest, so I have double green for Fanatic. So I could actually cast Avatar next turn. Opponent's gonna draw with Thunder of Unity. If I go for Avatar, I don't get to draw a card right away. I could also get some quest counters on the Ascension. So maybe it's worth it to wait. The fetch land also helps with the Earthbender Ascension. Yeah, let's go for Fanatic first. Attack. Get 2 quest counters on the Waterbender Ascension. So we're slowly but surely ascending. And this can get a tri-land end of turn. Something that's blue or white, ideally. Watery Grasp to prevent them from untapping doesn't seem super useful right now. So if I play Avatar Aang, this now makes 4 mana, so then I can Waterbend and draw a card of Aang at least. And then I'll still have the mana to ascend and at least draw a card. Opponent's going to draw a card as well. Could also tap Aang to help Waterbend. So Waterbender Ascension up to 3. Might be able to get all 3 of my Ascensions to 4 in 1 turn, which would be pretty sweet. Alright, opponent's gonna get lost on Avatar Aang, but I can now cast it for 6 mana, since the Curse of Silence is gone. Can still make Aang uncounterable. So let's see here. Let's put the counter on the mountain. Play Aang. And then let's start with the signets. And then I can also use the map tokens to waterbend, so that's convenient. And draw off Aang. Could still airbend as well, while I have this floating mana, which would draw off Aang again. They're going to counter that one. Still going to attack, and then get the Waterbender Ascension to 4, which now draws a card. And I've got another way to airbend. Possible we'll see a board wipe. They can still replay the freebooter as well. Our opponent's tired of the halfling, so that's gone. Swords Avatar Aang. So yeah, all the powerful, cheap interaction. Back to the command zone. Opponent is at 12. And these Ascensions are putting in work. Freebooter cannot take the Swift Savior, so has to take the Grasp. And now solve the equation, a way to transform Aang as well. They still have a blue up, would not be surprised if they have a Wash Away in hand. I can play a land, trigger Ascension. And then, if I try and recast it, this could still make some mana for me. This already taps for 4. So how about I start here, just to see if they don't have a counter. Alright, that resolves. So that's now on 4 counters. I can waterbend. Tapping a bunch of stuff. Draw Firebending Lesson. Could still airbend. Could also solve the equation to get Moon Mist, but yeah, I think I can do without it. So I can start by attacking. Could also Firebending Lesson and then Grasp the Weaver. So got a few options. I think I just attack and keep up Aang to maybe hit a sweeper. And then I can flicker Avatar Aang to have it back on defense. They know about Swift Savior, so we'll see how they plan to deal with it. Play the 5 mana commander. Second spell they get to draw, that's fine. I guess they are tapped out, so I may as well airbend it. Which will draw me a card as well. Flickering Swift Savior with the Ascension's pretty sweet, since that's another free airbend. Yeah, we should have lethal here. But alright, let's transform Avatar Aang. Just because we can. Let's see, I could airbend with the Ascension, waterbend with this Ascension. So I could actually get there just by getting a random Earthbend card. We don't need Moon Mist. The attack lets me Firebend, which can set up the lesson, and then Appa can also come in handy here. A lesson, clear the freebooter. And then let's use Appa. And then Appa will just airbend the Signet here, keep it simple. So I have Earth Bandit, Fire Bandit, Air Bandit, and now we'll Water Bend as well. And we did it! We transformed Avatar Aang at long last. So I can now cast all my spells for free. Although it's not gonna matter because the game's already over. Yeah, I guess I can just ramp a bit, get some more counters. Could also cycle some gardens, see what we get. Bitter Work I can cast. Do I want to do anything else? I'll keep these in hand, I think. So play this tapped and pass. Yeah, definitely would have had lethal if I maybe played a land to give it a Mountain Trample. Now I can flicker Aang, which in turn can airbend Appa. So that can also save my stuff from a sweeper. And we can play Appa for free. And I suppose I can also transform back Aang, so I can just deal 4 damage and win the game that way. Alright, thanks to our opponent for sticking around. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Hei Bai, 5-color shrines. I like Birds and Faber Elder. The burn spells are probably not at their best, since they don't deal with Hei Bai, but can maybe take care of an opposing mana creature. And yeah, if our opponent doesn't have removal, we can get Aang in play pretty quickly. Still gonna play Birds on 1. Flooded Strand could get something like a Hallowed Fountain. Opponent does have the Elvish Mystic. Okay, so could go for Fabero, then our opponent gets to play Hei Bai. Or I can take out the Elvish Mystic, probably using Portable Hole, and I get to keep up another burn spell. I think I would rather slow my opponent down. And then by playing the fetch land, if they don't present the targets, I can just get a tap tri-land instead. They do have some 1-mana shrines that I could Portable Hole, but those are typically not the shrines I'm worried about. Perfect, Soul Herder, a good target for my burn spell. Hallowed Fountain still looks fine. Keep the Braid since they might have some artifacts later. Can't play Aang, but we can play Faber Elder. And hopefully next turn play the Avatar. Hei Bai finds a pretty nice shrine here, the Seeing Winds. Now this can only airbend creatures. Don't really want to airbend Hei Bai if I can help it. So what's the move? Play Aang. Can attack with Fabero. I doubt our opponent's blocking. And then I guess I could still Waterbending Lesson. Opponent takes 4. Yeah, I think it's Waterbending Lesson here. Can pay 4 and then still tap Aang to Waterbend, or even Portable Hole. Draw another card, and then I can still play Havas's Pilgrim. But yeah, the fact that our opponent's playing Soul Herder means they'll have more ways to flicker Hei Bai, most likely. And yeah, Cloud Shift is one of them. So they're getting another shrine before resolving the Seeing Winds. Now the Plaza can help them ramp. So their opponent's also going off. Although Katara's pretty nice with Avatar Aang. So they get another land. Next turn they can deal at least 3 damage. Okay, at least they're tapped out. Rising of the Day. So, got a couple options. Could also Watery Grasp, and then try to Waterbend with the floating mana. Don't actually hate that idea, just to get rid of Hei Bai. So then I go Katara. Don't think I bother with the Rising of the Day. Go to attackers. And get double the firebending. Which also means double the card draw. And then we can get some more mana. Double the card draw once again. And then now Waterbend, tapping Portable Hole. Katara. My floating mana. Which lets me draw again. And Hei Bai is gone. At least for now. So there's nothing to abrade. So damage happens. Opponent's at 7. Okay, what can I figure out here? Still have quite a bit of mana available. Solve the equation. Could also maybe get a burn spell. Avatar's Wrath. Only airbends creatures. So don't really have a great answer for the opponent's shrines. Yeah, I can airbend my own creature, I guess, and just draw a few more cards of Avatar. This is 4 to play, and then I need to tap to Waterbend. I guess I could start by solving the equation just to see what options I have. Because I don't remember all of them. Yeah, I guess we can airbending lesson to airbend their shrine. That seems good. Do that now. And then the Seeing Winds is probably scarier. Get to draw. And draw 2 more times. Okay, I guess I'll just fetch a forest and play Elvish Mystic. Gonna have to discard a bunch to hand size. Can let go of Trio, Mana Confluence, and at this point maybe the Abrade. Two damage goes on the birds. Our opponent does have a River's Rebuke, unfortunately. So back to hands. Well, now Rising of the Day could come in handy. But our opponent's got all 3 shrines back online. But yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a slow rebuild. This only airbends creatures. So I can go Rising. The Mana Elves at least can immediately tap for mana. So then I can still play Faber Elder. That seems like a fine starting point. And then I can attack for 3 first. Bones at 4. And can still portable hole the Elvish Mystic. Or I can glide or staff. Let's go for a portable hole. Okay, that's gonna be it. Discard 1 card to hand size. Let's make it maybe the Avatar's Wrath. Don't see myself casting it. They can sadly finish off the Elder. So the game's not over yet, but a flying Avatar could just win the game. So now it's a Roastmaster into Hei Bai. Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest for more mana. But they don't seem to have an answer to Avatar Aang. Okay, let's still make sure we don't mess this up somehow. Yeah, it's gotta be Avatar Aang. Hope they don't have something like a Swords to Plowshares. If they do, we're not too far off for replaying it, I guess. And I can play another flyer. So that's probably fine. And yeah, the 1 extra power from Rising of the Day means that they're both lethal as well. And there we go. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Yorion, Blue-Eyed Flicker. My hand is reasonable. Mainly counting on the Faburo Elder. Get our green source in play in case we draw more mana elves. And I can also burst lightning if needed. Opponent's looking at my lands for Spreading Seas. Alright, so we've got some mana denial. Okay, so I still need white mana to cast Faburo Elder. Yeah, the Spreading Seas is going to make it a little tricky to cast Avatar Aang. Because yeah, this makes green-white. I guess this can make red, blue-white, yes, so we're still fine. Do I go for it now is the question. I guess with Stomping Ground I can still make 4 mana with a Faburo, and then I can at least play Aang the Last Airbender. Yeah, that seems fine. Could also keep up Swift Savior, but I feel like bouncing the Signet is pretty good here. Let's get in for 4 first. Because this way they won't be able to cast a 4 mana sweeper, which is potentially their interaction. A Relic of Legends. And they seem to have more interaction, unfortunately. Fragment Reality, so we'll get something in return. Bloom Tender, well, that can tap for 4 mana as well, so nothing of value was lost. So how about we go for Toph? And then I can attack with my 2 Aangs. And use the Firebending mana for Burst Lightning, which now triggers Toph as well. So I get to draw once again. And then I still have Swift Savior up thanks to Bloom Tender. So not going to do anything else. And yeah, Supreme Verdict, uncounterable. Does not stop me from airbending it. And that's game, just like that. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Titania, Protector of Argoth, so mono-green landfall basically. What do I think of my hand? And with Toph we can Earthbend. This can maybe let us Waterbend eventually. Don't have any ramp, which is the main concern, but I can deal with an opposing mana elf. So maybe it's good enough. Start by getting a tapped tri-land. Probably something that makes white. A white, red, blue seems decent. That way Harbor's also untapped. Okay, for now we'll just get another tri-land, I guess. Bristly Bill, we can Portable Hole. And get Catria Triome, I want to say. Could also just use a Submersible and keep Portable Hole for something else. Although it's better to bounce something more expensive. And they may not have a ton of other targets for Portable Hole. Well, next turn I could try and cast Avatar Aang, and I don't expect a ton of removal out of the mono green deck. Crucible's fine. Probably going to be paired with a fetch land. Okay, play Avatar Aang. And then this lets me Airbend, Earthbend, Waterbend, Firebend, so just need to set them all up in the same turn somehow. Can use the Firebending mana to Waterbend, since we can do so at instant speed. The Earth Kingdom General lets him Earthbend as well. Burst Lightning also a good way to use the Firebending mana. So this turn I'm thinking Toph to set up Earthbend on Portable Hole. Could Airbend the land, although it's not super necessary. So I probably wait on the Ascension to try and set them all up in the same turn. And then for now, maybe start by attacking, see what we draw of the Firebending mana. Mystical Tutor. Well, I could transform Aang right now if I wanted to. Sure. So, can Burst Lightning, since I'm not going to be able to use the mana at instant speed. Deal with the General. Deal 4. Go to main phase. Mystical Tutor. And get Moon Mist. And then I can still Ascension. Airbend the forests. Draw into Moon Mist. And then I can cast it. And then we can play these for free. And bounce your Crucible. Can animate the Submersible with Toph. And then I would probably be fine transforming Aang back to Avatar Aang, since I have more ways to draw cards with it. And then I would get to trigger its ability as well, which seems worth it to draw for. So yeah, pretty sweet turn all around. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Turn 2 Fanatic. Could maybe set up turn 3 Aang, and then we've got a few ways to draw cards. So turn 1, need to get something green, one of our tri-lanes. Opponent's gonna fetch as well, running a pair of commanders. Seems to be a recurring theme that we're getting paired against partners. So I want something green, something blue, something old, something new. Let's go with the red one here. Play Fanatic. Could also try and get the Greaves down before we deploy Aang, so we can Firebend right away. For now, Cecil. Yeah, could be patient. Force them to keep up instant speed removal. Protect the Fanatic for now. And I can get another tri-land. Betrayal does get around the Shroud here, unfortunately. But we can still cast Aang without it. Just gotta hope that fetch lane doesn't represent a 1-mana answer. But at least they're not playing blue, so they can't counter. Opponent's fetching. And they're gonna surveil. So a red, blue, I guess white. And he joins up could also be fun. But yeah, I think I go for Aang here. And hope they don't have another answer that gets around Shroud. So Cecil transforms if they have less than or equal to half their starting life total. So in Brawl, they would need to be at 12. So next turn they could transform Cecil, but we can play Annie joins up in the meantime. Could also flash in the Iceberg. Yeah, that would be a decent turn, I guess. Destroy Cecil, exile the commander. So they send it back to the command zone. So we get to Firebend twice, draw 2 cards. And our opponent's going to redirect Lightning. Okay, well I can still Waterbend to sacrifice the Iceberg. So I guess we'll do that. And then I get to draw even more with Aang. Well, this is pretty sweet. And then Burst Lightning, Crashing Wave. Probably don't need the Crashing Wave too much. Alright, that worked out. Opponent's at 5. Can discard a couple of lanes here. And can try and burn them out with a Burst Lightning. Yeah, and he joins up, putting in some work. Because we get to not only double the firebending, but also double the card draw off each firebending. The opponent seems pretty dead here. They can gain 4. They're even gonna draw. So an attack and a kick Burst Lightning should be game. Could spend time earthbending to draw even more cards. But yeah, there we go. GG's, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Exquisite Blade. My hand is reasonable. Could use more ramp, but at least we've got the Lightning Greaves for Shroud and Haste. So then the main concern would be a counterspell, perhaps. Opponent surveils Eternal Wander into the graveyard. Play Lightning Greaves. And let's try the Ascension first. Let's get a Hallowed Fountain, maybe. That resolves. Get a forest. And I suppose I can equip. Opponent with Ophelia. Into Oracle of the Alpha. That's a good one to flicker. They can put 2 power 9s in their deck. Well, hopefully they draw the less exciting half of them. For now, Avatar Aang. Can even play the Iceberg at instant speed. Mountain's probably fine. Although, let's maybe make sure my mana's perfect. Play Avatar Aang. Move Lightning Greaves. Attack. And then with the floating mana... Well, now Lightning Strike is probably a cleaner solution than the Iceberg. Deal with Felia. And pass a turn. Airbender Ascension can also airbend the Oracle, so yeah, opponent's got a pretty interesting plan. So now Katara looks good. Doubling Aang's trigger. If I draw land, I could still play Toph afterwards to Earthbend and draw more cards. Alternatively, I guess what I could do is play Pilgrim, give it haste as well, and then move the boots again. Doesn't seem like they have a 1-mana answer in hand. So tap this, play Katara. Can even attack with Katara, I guess. And yeah, opponent scoops it up, so it's a lot of card draw coming our way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Rofellos, so it's gonna be an uphill battle from the start. We do have turn 2 Lightning Strike to answer it at least, and then, yeah, Moon Mist to transform Aang, so I'll try it. It's still not perfect, since opponent can potentially replay Rofellos in the meantime, especially if they have a turn 1 accelerant, which they do not, and I drew Havas's Pilgrim, so can't complain. Now I can Lightning Strike, get a tap Tri-Land, and set up a turn 3 Aang. I can just fetch now, I guess. I already have red and white, so blue-green is the priority. Opponent ramping with Overlord, so next turn they can play Rofellos, but yeah, don't expect much removal for Avatar Aang. Maybe some Aura to shut down its abilities. Rofellos is back, and it does threaten to tap for 5 mana, next turn even more. So I still have my work cut out for me here. Need to hope to draw some answers with Avatar Aang, because I can only draw before it transforms. Once I transform, sure, I get to cast spells for free, but yeah, that doesn't stop my opponent from doing their thing. So ideally, I draw something with the firebending mana. Could also potentially earthbend first. but then if I draw an expensive answer, I may not be able to play it. So I think I start by attacking. Ooh, Swords to Plowshares, that's perfect. Keep on getting lucky. And our opponent's just gonna scoop it up here. Alright, so did not get to see the Moon Mist transformation. I think the sequencing is probably a hit for 4. I'm not gonna use the red mana, and in fact I don't even think we need to transform Aang this turn. I can just Earthbend onto the fetch land, sacrifice it to get an extra land, draw another card, and then maybe if I've drawn a few more spells, it's gonna be worth it to Moon Mist. Or I can Moon Mist just to immediately transform back and then draw 4 cards, which is also reasonable, of course. But do need to keep in mind that this prevents all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures other than wolves or werewolves, so we don't want to transform Aang until we've dealt damage, but there's still technically a window where we can use the firebending mana in the end of combat step, so then we can maybe still make use of 1 mana to cast the Moon Mist, and then potentially still cast spells afterwards. So we got to see this 4-color Avatar Aang deck in action. And yeah, we managed to transform Aang even without the Moon Mist, although of course it is still the most reliable and easiest way to do so. But overall, the deck seems pretty fun if you're looking for a very thematic, maybe slightly more casual Brawl deck. It's not going to be able to compete with the most cutthroat of Brawl commanders, as it doesn't necessarily have an immediate impact when you play your commander. We're playing a lot of pretty clunky, expensive cards just because they say airbending or earthbending on them, so don't expect it to be the most competitive deck ever. But as far as historic Brawl goes, it definitely performed better than I would have hoped for, since I did not think we would get to transform Aang very often. But yeah, for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.